Good day to you. This is Anagalactic with our second presentation in the 2024 Equinox series. We are in cosmic geometry, but today beginning a new presentation series. We're concentrating on the number 2. This is something that is done in science. You have to bear down, you have to focus and concentrate on just one aspect of something rather enormous that we call science, because we're dealing with the universe and with truth and with proof. But you do have to start somewhere, and therefore you have to choose. So our first excursion into the number 2 is a repeat of how I began this series 2 years ago. 570 presentations ago, I began with 2 directions and 2 surfaces. So the first thing you have to do is not bear down, not dig in, not randomly choose some department of science to study. You have to think about your position as a human for yourself. No one can do this for you, and so it's commonly overlooked. No one can really even train you in how you are going to deal with your own life. But science is rigorous, it's orderly, it's logical, it's a known method of achieving knowledge, which is something we all seek. We're blueprinted to seek knowledge. You may ask why. There are answers that go to expediency, and that's the common result, the common impression, the norm. The hoi polloi understand what science is. Do they understand it correctly? There's a reason they're called hoi polloi. No, they're brainwashed to think whatever the authorities say, because that's all hoi polloi know about. They don't think. They weren't even given the opportunity, or they didn't take their opportunity, whatever the case, whether there's blame or guilt or sin or hellfire, really is beside the point. You either make your choice logically or you're hoi polloi. So that's the first choice, is to turn on your logical mind and prefer it as if your life depended on it. That's relative, and you know there's a caveat and a footnote and endless philosophical debate, and then religion and philosophy, and everyone gets upset and no one likes each other, and you go back to status quo and being hoi polloi. Just cocktail party chatter because you never made the right choice, and now you're stuck with your decision. So a scientist is a highly favored position to be in if you're looking for a way out of confusion, which you'd better be, or you're just going to stay confused. So that's the main purpose, in one sense, of science. You have to choose it. You have to choose rational logic and discard your emotional side, which is impossible. So you have a paradox. And so life is a game. Life is a game. It does not have a zero-sum outcome. There is meant to be progress. There's a reason for things. But in order to know any more about it so that you could talk about it, we are communal and communicative creatures. Can you talk about your perception of reality so as to help others and perhaps get new insight from others? That's what we're supposed to be doing, isn't it? When we do that rationally and under full standard controls regulating interactions between humans, we can make real progress. We harnessed electricity. I need not go on. You have cell phones, computers, jets, all kinds of transportation, refrigeration and heating, unbelievable improvements to the overall situation of humans on Earth trying to survive for 70 or 80 years each. We find out that if we pool our minds rationally and work together, we can achieve miracles. That is the correct word for the advancements in technology, certainly now into the 21st century, a series of absolutely unforeseeable miracles. Science fiction is no longer science fiction. There's really no science fiction left. Anything that you can think of is possible now. Due to the discoveries made at the edge of the universe that we'll never figure it out, therefore it's an open field for philosophy and even for religion. Going to the core, we never found the atom. Everyone's baffled. They're still smashing protons together in Switzerland and building a much larger Hadron Collider. Hundreds of billions of dollars of wasted effort. Why are we pursuing this chimera? We are not. Governments are. Never identify with we. You are not we. You are you. And you're going to remain you, and you will answer for you, not for we. Not for they, not for us. It's you and you alone. You're alone. And you will die that way. Nobody will go with you. Nobody's going to help you, bring you back, mourn for you. Or if they do, they're just barking at the moon. You're gone. You're going to be gone soon. So that's part of the game. This is life or death? Absolutely. Nobody really is sure, or at least to the point of being able to prove, what happens after your consciousness on Earth is turned off. Your body is no longer operable, and so your consciousness has no seat, and therefore it's gone. Well, because of the discoveries in quantum mechanics, we now know it's not entirely gone. Nothing disappears from the universe, but relatively speaking, there's a reason to fear death. Now you know that religion attempts to address this fear, to alleviate your fear, but there are two ways to alleviate your fear of reality. One is to pretend, make up a story, and then pretend. Most religions, most of the time, are trying to do that because people are absolutely terrified of death. Absolutely petrified of death. Because it's the end of everything knowable. Well, that just simply does not set well with us. We don't consider that to be a reasonable outcome of this game. Well, it can't be. We have consciousness now, and therefore, you could say it's a form of proof, but it's really, you can't share the proof. But you know that because you have consciousness, it's meant to continue. That's the only logical extrapolation from the existence of your personal consciousness. But then science runs to your aid with the perception that there's a contradiction somewhere because we do die with no provable result of it. That to this day science has no idea why it's doing anything. In a closed system, which this is not, the Earth is not a closed system. We're not cut off from the universe, but relatively speaking, it is perfectly reasonable to operate logically from a position where you perceive that you are cut off from the universe because you're going to die with no evidence it's provable evidence of what happens to your consciousness after death. So this game definitely has a surprise ending. Now, if it's true what Richard Dawkins says and what the scientists all insist is the absolute truth is that nothing makes any sense, nothing matters. There's no such thing as morality, except from the point of view of the government to control the herd. You need to have some kind of constraints on the slaves, or you can't achieve your governmental goals, which of course is weapons. Governments have only one reason to exist, they produce weapons to wipe out all the other governments. So we all know that, and we all know the terrors of the actual situation on Earth. It is completely overrun with governments. There's no way to fix it. And so this is how the Earth will terminate itself. Because of the human infestation that somehow got out of control, and now governments absolutely have no restrictions placed on themselves, except for certain vicissitudes of history where governments change hands. But they never improve. Governments never get better. They're always making weapons to destroy all the other governments, to steal. That's all humans have ever done collectively. They invade each other's lands and steal anything they can. And that's the meaning of the United States government. You think that it's holy and sacred because you were brainwashed into thinking so. Well, it's the same with Italians, Germans, Chinese. Everyone thinks the same thing of their own country, because you'd better, and you better do a good job of pretending that you go along with your government, because if you don't, the government can get rid of you, but you can't get rid of it. So in that contest, you'll be just one of billions of victims, murdered by their own people. Now in religion, there's a whole, the only real interesting religion on earth, I would say from a rational point of view, is the case of Christianity, where the Jews produced a man, according to prophecy, according to the record, who came to heal the earth. Well, the Jews murdered him and sent him packing back to heaven where he came from. So that was the end of the Creator's plan. No, it's not. No, it's not. And that's why the Bible was written. So that by reading the Bible, you'll at least have a point of view. Whether you believe it or not or accept it makes no difference. The only thing that makes a difference is that there is a record of the Creator. And you can choose not to believe that. You can go jump in bed with Richard Dawkins and have homo sex with him, with your mind, which is what you're doing if you believe his bullshit. There is no creator, there is no designer. Well, there's no morality then. There's no point, there's no reason, and so you're just a sick pretender just serving the government to destroy the earth, which is what's happening. Well, that's what the Bible said would happen. So the Bible is already ahead of the game in predicting what would happen to earth. And it's all about the Jews. Isn't that funny? This tiny little nation, basically niggers of niggers. They were actually slaves of Africans. Africans. They were slaves in Africa. Oh boy. Well, you can't get any lower than that. That's what the Creator chose, to make a new race of humans. Now, this is not genetic, but it is partially genetic. The Jews are a separate phenotype. They're not a separate race. That's the wrong word. That's actually racism. If you think that there is more than one race, then by definition, you're a racist. Well, there is such a thing as racism. It was invented by the Jews because they found themselves having been chosen by the Creator of the heavens and the earth. That, by the way, means the solar system and the earth. This solar system was clearly engineered. The entire thing was engineered. Saturn has rings. Well, that's the sign of engineering. And the moon is at a perfect distance from the earth. Perfectly engineered. Just as it says in the Bible, and nowhere else in the annals of history is that stated. But it's stated right at the outset of human history by divine intervention that this solar system was designed, engineered, and created and then it was formed. The aliens had to do this consciously, hands-on. They did. That's absolutely proved by science, and that is the real primary justification for the scientific process and the scientific method. That we're able now to prove that the existence of the Creator is absolutely certain. And therefore, all you need to do is find out what went wrong with the Creator's plan. Something interfered with the Creator, and something screwed this planet so that it's no longer able to recover. So this planet was sabotaged. And you see it all around you. You see a lot more than that. If you learn wisdom at all, you will learn to see what's actually happening. It takes work. You do have to study. And you also have to have a bulletproof, shock-resistant bullshit detector. And you have to be able to transcend the lies, the deception, and the monumental pile of bullshit that blocks you from seeing direct reality. This solar system was engineered by visiting aliens. That is the result of science. Science has proved that that's the case. But that's a little too direct for the government of this world to tolerate. Because there's one thing you'll find out from analyzing any government, but you only need to analyze one or two now. The United States government and the government of Israel define government completely. It's genocidal. It's bent on world domination. It uses money to control herds of people. That's quite difficult to do. It took thousands of years to perfect the final solution. The Jews got it. They got it by going along with the saboteur. It had to be an entity that sabotaged the system. That entity has a well-known name in every religion, called by all kinds of ridiculous names, I suppose you could put it that way, but there are definitely at least 2 alien cultures now. Just so happens that's mentioned in the Bible. But of course you wouldn't want to soil yourself with a record that might actually give you insight, because you've been brainwashed not to look in that direction. If you try to use science to determine your origins, you will encounter Darwinian biological natural selection, probably the biggest lie in the sense of it being patently false, and yet everybody accepts it. You have to ask yourself why. So our investigation of the universe from a strategy of two-ness begins with the heavens and the earth, with good and evil, all the standard dualities. These are manifestations of the number 2. This is the most important number in science, is the number 2. As you can tell, it's also the most important number in sacred metaphysics. I'm a student of sacred geometry. Of course, you've been brainwashed that every time you hear the word sacred or holy, you know exactly what your Pavlovian dog reaction is, and you can't control it. You hate the truth, or you die. That's how you've been brainwashed. But there's 2 of everything, darling. 2, not 1. There's not just 1 of anything. There are always 2, including 2 gods. There are also 2 Jesus Christs, 2 of them. One is out to murder you, and the other one is out to save you from the murderer. and you have no way of telling the difference. They're aliens, honey. They're aliens. Of course you can't tell the difference. Because even a second-rate alien can make you believe anything, almost. So you do have to have a certain faith. There's another word, a trigger word with you. Be sure you monitor yourself as you listen to me. I use these words correctly. You do have to have some kind of faith. That doesn't mean you have to put on diapers and start shitting yourself to be young and stupid enough to believe in some religious bullshit. This is strict, rational logic. Okay? So here we are, we find ourselves in this game. Very important to realize it's a game, because a game has one of two outcomes for any participant. You either win the game or you lose. You either win the game or you lose. Is there an in-between? Nobody knows, because the parameters of the question are ill-defined. Nobody knows what is the purpose of humanity. Nobody has ever known that. Nobody knows what science is actually doing, or what its purpose is, or what its goals could possibly be. And so you've been brainwashed with technological wonders. Jets, cell phones. Could you live without your cell phone for even 3 days? Ask yourself seriously, could you? Could you live without your car? Well, all of those are owned by your government. You don't own them. You're just borrowing, you're renting everything from the government. The government has total power over your life, except in one tiny, inaccessible area. It goes by many names. Heart, soul, spirit. Actually, scientifically, you could get away with saying your mind. Your mind is yours. Not at first, it's not. Your mind belongs to everyone around you, and it does not at all belong to yourself. You were born with a blank mind. Blank mind. Blanked mind. Nothing in it. Totally helpless. Totally subject to the imbeciles that came before you. And you should, in retrospect at least, be able to hope that you or some other poor bastard had some wise man, a wisdom person, step into your life at some point to help you. Without a wise man, there is no hope for any human. You will be brainwashed. We all are. We all start out as brainwashed automata, just denying or accepting whatever our local society, culture, and government orders us to do. And when we come of age and we're big and strong enough to hold a weapon, then the government calls you to do what it wants, because your life is worthless to the government except as it can use you. And so you're under the full control of the world until you decide somehow to figure a way out. That's the game, is to get out of this trap. And then everybody seems to have their own crack-brained idea of how to do that. Well, just be here now, be here now, be here now. You'll lose your mind doing that. Or just meditate, fast and meditate. Pray to Mary. Pray to the candles. Pray to the altar. Pray to the priest. Pray and bring your wallet. Don't forget to bring your fucking wallet, asshole. And then pray for whatever they tell you to pray for. Usually the death of your enemies all around you, right? That's what the church is for. It's an arm of the government. That's why people hate Christianity, and they hate any other religion except perhaps for the one that they know is true. And so the game goes on. Well, as a rational logician, you have to choose that. That's one of your choices, is to prefer logic to guesswork, hearsay, rumors, myths, legends, parables. No, you need proof, or your mind won't accept the answer. You can fool yourself all you want. But the difference between hoi polloi and a real scientist is a real scientist chooses logic because his life and sanity depend on it. You must get the answer or you lose the game. They win. Your ancestors, your predecessors, your stupid parents, let's face it, your stupid preachers, your stupid politicians, and your goddamn fucking lying asshole so-called scientists are all an arm of your enemy who are here to murder you completely. Well, that means going against the grain of the blueprint that you and I were given to get rational answers that the Creator expects us to get for our own good, to please not only ourselves, but to please our Creator. Wouldn't that be logical? My dears, that is the only logic there is. Either you're trying to please the one who invented you, or you're you're not gonna pass muster, so that when you die, you will know, at least then, what to expect. You failed. They got you. They won. I'm not here to let them win. They can do whatever they want and say whatever they want and accomplish whatever they want. They always have. They've gone against God. I'm speaking of governments and any large body of men. They're always against God. They're always trying to stop the real plan. But if you don't know anything about the real plan, not even as a guess, then you're brainwashed. You have no choices. You have no options. You will fulfill your programmed destiny. So, as I began to say in the first of our Equinox broadcasts just a little earlier today, we're talking about the number 2, and I was leading us to a perception of the 2 paths of science. You start with astronomy, and if you're capable, you turn to the earth sciences, which is to get the origins of things, such as the origin of humans, the ecology, and life on earth, etc. You'll be blocked, you'll be frustrated, and you will give up. You have no choice. They hold all the cards. You have just one. So you're not going to find the answers you want from biology. They're all compromised. They're liars. They serve your enemy. Now you starting to get the picture? Everything is your enemy, except your direct perception of reality. That's all you'll ever have. That's the definition of consciousness. How do you perceive reality? How do you see things? What's your answer? Well, you're going to run into a lot of conundrums. You already have, and you've given up because you had no choice but to give up. Because you're not getting any answers. You will be prevented from getting answers. To get any answers at all for what you actually need to know, you're on your own completely. And I don't mean to cite someone who might make you angry, but there was a great prophet by the name of Yeshua who talks about that quite a bit. Quite a bit. Your conundrum, your problem, and his view of your problem. The really sad aspect of that is that it has a name now. It's called Christianity. But guess who invented Christianity? Not the Christians. Not the Jews. Not even heaven itself invented Christianity. The governments of this earth, actually European governments, particularly England, but it began, well, centuries ago. After the destruction of the evil Zionist Empire in Jerusalem, using the instrumentality of Titus's Roman army, the Jews were destroyed for 2,000 years. The Zionist Empire was no more. So things could then recommence. The Jews ruined everything. The Jews fucked this planet. They murdered the healer. And that's actually the situation, whether you realize it or not. That is the situation. The plan A of heaven never had a chance. But the great designer who made this game, I don't think I need to finish that sentence. The great designer made this game. He cannot be fooled. There cannot be an error. If there's a problem here on Earth in fulfilling the will of the designer to complete the blueprint for this experiment, this Earth is an experiment. Of course it is. It's a game. Will it work or will it won't? Will it work or will it not? It seems like it didn't. And pseudoscience supports that 100%. It's basically teaching you to give up and abandon hope. All ye who enter here, abandon hope. That's the sign above the gateway into hell. That's what science is inviting you into. Hell. Give up. Science has proved there's no creator. Well, science has also proved that we're descended from monkeys. And science has proved that the universe is expanding and being swallowed by a black hole at the same time. So science is psychotic. Well, what did you expect when the entire game has just been flipped? Whatever the chess pieces had been at the beginning, some interferer came along and just took the board and chucked it. And then planted himself, this would be an alien, of course. I'm the fucking king. And we'll see if there's a creator. So there's a game, all right. And it's not limited to Earth. So if you understand any of that, you have a chance to win. I'm here to make you a winner. You're going to win. But in order for you to win, you will need to follow in the footsteps of the one who trod the path ahead of us. And he was murdered in the most humiliating and horrifying way possible, and you will be too, one way or the other. You will lose your mind in order to get your real mind. And if that frightens you, good. You should be scared to death, because this is reality. It's not for children, honey. It's only for real men. I don't see any out there. There are no real men. That's easy for me to say, because I have the perspective necessary to make that assessment. But it's tragic. Because I can tell you, it's not as hard as you think. But it will seem harder than you can handle when you reach the point of transcendence, where your mind will have to change. Well, that's called metanoia. It's translated repentance. All repentance means is you're pointed this way, you point another way. It will wrench you in half, as if you were being crucified. Whatever that means to you, your worst fear, sometimes called AHOR, it was Tom Wolfe who made this abbreviation for ancient horror. Whatever it is you fear most, whether it's death or oblivion or endless torture or just death itself, just horror, just pain, whatever it is you fear most, you're going to have to face it You're going to have to figure it out. You're going to have to go right through it. You're going to have to revisualize the actual ring of fire that you have to jump through. But then you're going to have to jump through it. And very few make it. That's in Scripture too. Very few make it. I'm here to make sure you have every chance to make it. But if you listen to these monsters who are brainwashing you, you have zero chance. Zero. If you listen to Anna Galactic, your odds go up. And no one else will assist you in this. I'm your only source. So I hope you tune in as we go on with our exploration of the number 2, as we probe the actual geometry of the universe, so we can actually visualize truth physically and see the essence of the Creator's design as far as we can. Always in gratitude, awe, and wonder. Don't ever discount gratitude. You are being observed. And it's not just your government that's observing you. You're being observed jealously from two sides of a cosmic chessboard. You can think of yourself as a pawn, but actually you're real, aren't you? You're not an illusion. You have consciousness now. It is meant to continue. But you know there's a great big obstacle called death. Honey, you're going to have to face it before you die. After that, it's too late. Then you'll find out the truth, but you won't be able to control it. You do have an element of control for now. It's quite limited and it could be discounted. It's your mind, heart, soul. It's whatever is you. Only you are you. Some will say you're unimportant, such as Richard Dawkins or any religion. You're meaningless. And therefore, just play their game. Don't play the Creator's game. That's already lost. I'm here to tell you, the Creator has already won. He's mopping up at the same time that his enemy is starting to realize whoever it is that's trying to control this world, whatever conspiracy you buy into, you won't go high enough until you realize it's a cosmic conspiracy. Once you start to smell that and start to realize it's scorching you, that someone is trying to murder you from heaven, and someone else is trying to rescue you from heaven. Until you realize that you're part of that game, you're a pawn and that's all you'll be. You're not real. You're just part of some game. Which game do you want to end up part of? The game that's foisted on you by liars and deceivers? Or the actual rational truth that you can discover by simply observing the universe, especially the night sky? It only takes a moment and your life changes permanently. There's always a chance to go back. There are many warnings about that once you begin, don't quit, keep going. That will test you. It tests every man. But there's so few of us. There's so few of these men at any one time in history. We're just absolutely precious. The only humans, the only men capable of leading the next generation, giving guidance to the youth, you're looking at one. How many listeners do I have? How many listeners does Lex Friedman have? Or the pseudoscientists, such as Brian Greene, Sean Carroll, pure deceivers, pure liars, absolutely no sense of moral worth whatsoever, no perception of reality, none. Nothing but pawns in someone's hideous game who's out to murder you and every other human just to stop God's plan. That's the game. Is it irrational? I used to stay up nights in Kiev when I lived in Kiev, Ukraine. I lived in Kiev, Ukraine. And I shared an apartment with another missionary. I'm a Christian missionary, or I was at that time. Now I'm a cosmic missionary. But I stayed up most nights during the winter, 1999. Actually, yeah, it was 1999. With a physicist, a 22-year-old physicist who had malaria from doing missionary work in Philippines. And so he had insomnia. We were both teachers. We taught English in a school in Kiev. And we would stay up as late as he wanted. He would talk all night. I'd stay up until 1 a.m., 2 a.m. So one night I stayed up all night with him. He didn't sleep. He had insomnia. He would take some naps sometimes, otherwise you die. If you can't sleep, you'll die very quickly. You must have sleep or you'll lose your mind and die. So he had insomnia, so his life was in jeopardy, but he always managed to get enough sleep. You could say it wasn't terminal insomnia. But he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What did we talk about? We talked about Satan. Our conversations focused night after night, week after week, on the nature of Satan. As a couple of Bible scholars, and both of us were scientists too, he much more than I at the time, I undoubtedly much more than he now, but I actually don't know where he is. He disappeared off the face of the earth. I can't find him and nobody knows where he went. It might have been an angel that was talking with me. That's in the Bible too. I don't think he was, but I actually don't know. And he and I talked about Satan, and we would exchange sides of the conversation fluidly, just taking one side or another, that either God knew what Satan was going to do or God did not know. I know accredited Bible scholars, I would say in the same class as myself, approximately, that level of intensity, seriousness about the Bible. What does it actually say? What does it mean? Well, the nature of Satan is part of the game that nobody can penetrate. It's not that nobody can, it's that it's hard to communicate. Science is communication. And what we were exploring about the nature of Satan ended up focusing on whether God knew everything. What could you say of the creator of the universe that having invented Satan, did the creator foresee exactly what Satan might do? I don't provide an answer to that question, but I will tell you what I found out from conversing about this, not only with my physicist friend in Kiev on those wintry nights, but also with other Bible scholars from time to time. I've met someone of my caliber, I guess, intensity, willing and able, or at least willing, to discuss the nature of God's omniscience. Is it even possible that the creator of the universe might not know what part of his universe might do? For instance, one of his generals perhaps sent or escorted part of a mission to a solar system that needed to be engineered to produce human life. Well, what if one of your engineers sabotages the project, which is what happened, obviously? Can you say that the creator must have known that that was going to happen, because that would make the creator the author of evil? quite a serious religious question, really, a theological question, because then you could blame God for evil. He created it. There is one passage in prophecy where the Creator, who at the time was called the God of Israel, he's no longer called that for obvious reasons, but at the time he called himself the God of Israel because he wasn't done with his plan. So he requisitioned, he commandeered a nation for his purposes, the nation of Israel, in order to produce a man, the one seed, the result of God's foresight, was to produce this peculiar man who would unite humanity so that everything would turn out well, correctly. According to what we see in the ecology, humans are obviously designed for some very good purpose. Well, it seems out of reach now. That's because the game is reaching a climax. Both sides are ready to unleash their big weapons, whatever those might be. It doesn't necessarily mean thermonuclear stockpiled warheads. It's AI. It's brainwashing. It's control of the herds, control of the hoi polloi, the slaves, the niggers. There's a white supremacist movement which has already won. The Jews have decided that they're the whites. The Jews are the whites. They've already taken over Russia. They've already taken over the United States. They're about to take over the entire Middle East. But once they attack Iran, that will be by forcing the United States to attack Iran. That will end the game. Are you ready? I hope so, because if you're not, bye-bye, you lose. You've already lost. The reason you're listening to me is perhaps you'll hear your options. You don't have to be a loser, but you do have to be willing to lose your mind and everything that goes with it. If you're man enough, I'm the man to help you. If you're not man enough, you have plenty of friends. So I hope you tune in. We'll be back with more on the number 2 and what it means for you in terms of rational logic and getting the conclusions you need so that you can end your life successfully, having completed your blueprint given to you by your Creator, and you refused the fake. You would not listen to the enemy of the Creator's plan. At the very end, I can tell you, just as an insider, what's going to happen after the conflagration is over here on this doomed planet. There will be a convocation of consciousnesses under control of the winner of the game for control of the earth. I can already tell you, there is no enemy of the Creator who has the chance of a snowball in hell. So if you're still deceived, you're a loser. You're a cosmic loser because you're stupid. And if you're that stupid, you're also immoral. Are you? Examine yourself. Whom do you serve? Nobel Prize laureate in literature, Bob Zimmerman, a Jew who's also a Native American Jew, Bob Dylan. You've got to serve somebody. It may be the devil, and it may be the Lord, but you're going to have to serve somebody. Examine yourself and listen carefully. The devil. Now you accept that. The Lord. No way, right? Bye bye, loser. See you on the other side when it's too late to do anything to help yourself. I hope you tune in. We'll be giving you the secrets of the universe as I've promised. My soul is on the line by attempting to reach out to you. I'd better not be trying to deceive you, or I lose. I'm not going to lose, honey. But you certainly will if you don't listen up. So stay tuned. That's your first order. We'll be right back.